Hello there. My name is Antoine Aurelis, a VP with Lakeland Consulting. We're here at Lakeland's Knowledge and Resolution Hub, and today we'll be having a discussion on collaborative delivery, project delivery, specifically with respect to collaborative behavioral assessments or CBAs. With me, we have here my colleague Bill Mocsan. And I'm going to pass it over to you, Bill, to introduce yourself.
Hi. Thank you, Antoine. My name is Bill Mocsan. I'm a senior consultant at Lakeland Consulting, and I specialize in the areas of fairness services and procurement. Thank you.
Okay, Bill, whilst you have the floor, I'll just
Okay.
I'll let you start off with the first question.
Sure.
Please.
I'll ask the first question. It's about the relevancy of this whole collaboration in project delivery. It seems to be becoming quite popular and almost a flavor of the month, if you will. What does it mean, and why is it becoming increasingly important?
Thank you, Bill. So I will not go directly to speaking of collaborative of CBAs. I'm going to first have a conversation about how we really got there. Traditional projects were delivered in a manner which encouraged, adversarial behavior, and the parties were all geared at seeing how they could, get the most out of any situation. And as there's less focus on the project delivery, but and the outcomes of the project, but parties tend to try to get the most out of every situation. And most construction professionals and experts will tell you that this basically is, if not solely responsible, at least contributed to a lot of the project delays and cost escalations and overall poor outcomes of projects. So what the industry is trying to move into is more collaborative forms of delivering projects, whereby a number of things could be done concurrently instead of being siloed one at a time, as typically happens on the traditional forms of delivery. And parties could basically work together to resolve issues on a project and get towards delivering successful projects and less gaming and blaming. So with collaborative methods of delivery, it was thought that maybe assessing your partner to ensure that you have the right partner would be a good idea. And so collaborative behavioral assessment, or CBAs, get towards trying to identify the right partner for a project owner, and they look at various attributes in that partner under some form of control conditions, which is what the CBA allows you to do, and to help them select the best partner to help them deliver the project successfully. Recognizing that CBAs are, at least to my understanding, they're fairly new, in Canada. Do you know whether it has been tested in other jurisdictions, and what's the result like?
Sure. Yeah, I think this collaborative behavioral assessments have been used on a number of public and broader public sector procurement initiatives in the UK, in Australia, and in New Zealand, and I think they're continuing to sort of evolve and get better and more effective. It's really, the process is seems to be best applied in scenarios where their construction project is a large, complex civil infrastructure initiative, such as healthcare or a prison or something, where there are strong sort of relationships that are necessary to successfully deliver the complex project. So, by way of example, in the UK, behavioral assessments are a key part of frameworks using the new engineering contract and the government procurement process to assess how well the builder or the supplier or the construction team is going to collaborate with the rest of the team collectively. Australia's also used it in their alliance contracting and other progressive procurement delivery models, and I understand that they've been quite successful. Canada, we've seen it ourselves. We were just talking about it. Probably 4 or 5 different cases that are either completed or underway. We know that Metrolinx uses it, Infrastructure Ontario. We have a client in Western Canada that's about to go into a CBA process. And it's really for the same types of public infrastructure projects that are large, complicated, with a lot of risk. And the whole notion of bringing in the concept of collaboration among the different participants in the project seems to be growing, gaining a lot of traction. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that.
So I guess it's my turn. We talked about where it's being used. What is the process? How do you apply a collaborative behavioral assessment or administer it, and how does it work?
So Bill, I've witnessed or observed a number of CBAs, and I'll just lay out some of the main points as to what typifies a CBA. They start off with some pre-assessment designs, and just kind of determine how they would go about what qualities and what attributes they'll be looking for specific to that assessment. Talking about stuff like problem solving, communication skills, conflict determination, and particularly within the team itself, they look at trust. How the team members trust each other. So that's done in a situation where you have they look at they take set members from the delivery or contractors team, and they would have the teams made up of these members as well as members from the owner side, right? And they basically are provided with problems which you're going to solve together, hopefully, and they move on to scenario sets, and those exercises they provide them with scenarios at the start of the exercise, and those scenarios change during the exercise, so they basically need to make decisions at the spur of the moment, and see how they react to those to these kinds of to these changes to the situation. Again, basically trying to kind of mimic what happens on projects. Yeah. You what you start off with, there are gonna be changes along the way and issues that you had no idea about, whether it's issues related to what you find in the ground, issues related to what changes that are required for one reason or another. But typically projects, you're faced with changes that you did not foresee at the start of the project, and basically the assessors would be looking at observing, and they would help use that they have a scoring matrix, and they would be scoring each team, right? And then they would do their feedback based again on the guidelines. They would do some feedback sheets, which they would combine the individual assessor feedbacks and kind of have a overall assessment of how the not just the individual teams, but the overall proponent team performed. And that is basically how they go. The assessment is derived.
Okay.
Recognizing your expertise in fairness, right? I thought maybe I should bring that to you, Bill, and say, although this is, innovative to some extent, right? It's susceptible to, unfair, subjective, subjectivity. How do you regard the process?
It is a good question. I think fairness is really about consistent treatment, unbiased treatment. So as you're going through the procurement process, all of your bidders are treated in sort of a fair, consistent, open, transparent manner. So these behavioral assessments, they're not really intended to replace sort of the technical evaluation or the financial or commercial evaluation, but they're really there to complement it. And the way that I've seen it is when it's used properly, it will in fact promote fairness by identifying teams that are most likely to collaborate successfully with the buyer when the situation, throughout the process, but in particular when the situation perhaps becomes a little troubled. And it's not just those who write the best proposal. It's tries to take into account the ability of the team to collaborate, cooperate when situations arise. So it's innovative, there's no doubt about it, but it can be susceptible to some subjectivity, especially when you're measuring people's behavior. There are things you can do to try and minimize the negative effects of that. For example, you can standardize the evaluation frameworks and establish clear criteria with scoring rubrics, make sure that everything's applied consistently to all the bidders. When you're going through it, you can train your assessors to make sure that they understand the importance of consistency, and to make sure that they can apply the same judgment and to all the bidders as they each go through their own assessment. You can use multiple assessors, so you're not basing the assessment on the bias of one particular assessor. You can have structured briefings and calibrate the meetings among the assessors, so that you're trying to minimize any external influence or bias that one assessor may have for or against a particular bidder. You can, and then transparency with the participants about what's being assessed, what you're looking for, how they're going to be measured, the value of the assessment process and the overall score. So is it 10% of the overall score, and price is 40, and technical is 50 or whatever? As long as you're transparent about the process and how it's going to work and what you're looking for, and it's clear to them, your objective really is to minimize any opportunity for bias, and ensure that the process is as fair as possible.
Yeah. So, Bill, like you've just you mentioned use of multiple assessors. I take it that if you have multiple assessors, that will help, the inherent subjectivity that may creep in from one person or another.
Sure, yeah.
That will help, clean it out when you combine all of those scores instead of using just one score.
Yeah, and it's also important to remember that the assessors are independent third-party service providers. They're not part of your organization, so they do this professionally, and they'll have they'll be able to try and minimize any inherent bias that one person might have, and that's why you use multiple assessors to try and minimize the effect of that. The next question is really about the use of these collaborative behavioral assessments and what types of projects are best suited for the collaborative model. And can you give us an example of some of these types of arrangements?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. So CBAs are typically used for complex projects. I'm talking about the major projects you see all around the place right now. Major hospitals, transit projects, and stuff of that sort. They're the types of projects that usually attract that type of, because again, these are projects that are multi-year in duration. The makeup of the parties could change over time, and so you want to make sure you're choosing the best partner to go through that project over such a long time with you, right? The projects that there's a lot of interdependence. So you're talking about integrated teams to help design and construct and maintain, in some cases, the project. So you're looking at projects of such. So a number of the projects you see around the place, like you've mentioned even before, the major detention centers and hospitals and other health facilities and transit facilities. These are the types of projects. Just not too long ago, I was involved in a correctional facility project, and at the conclusion of the procurement, they did a CBA to help decide which was the best proponent to go along with. They used the two highest performing proponents and provided them with the opportunity to go through a CBA. And I personally found it to be quite interesting, the way the parties behave, and I do have my concerns about it, but sometimes you wonder if it's it's a bit more rehearsed, than genuine. I've been told that over that period of time with the CBA, each CBA was over a 2-day period. Over that period of time, it would be very difficult for individual team members to maintain a rehearsed posture, and they would
for sure.
And so I think based on that, it's sufficiently reliable as a testing mechanism.
Yeah.
Right. Having been involved in quite a few CBA processes, what are your thoughts on how does it add value to the overall procurement, and also, if you don't mind touching on the ultimate project delivery?
Sure. I do think there are, from what I've seen, there do seem to be a number of benefits, and I think the process, using the model and the approach to ensure that you're retaining the services of someone who demonstrates that they have sufficient collaborative skills, there are a lot of advantages. And I think one of them is just the improved team dynamics. Right from the outset, you can see that everyone has their expectations are aligned. They all have the same understanding of their roles and the requirements of the project. And there's a strong sort of interpersonal trust, to use the word that you mentioned earlier, reducing conflict and reducing delays and problem solving. So as issues, if things do get off the rails, they work more cooperatively and more collaboratively to resolve the issues together. I think that's probably the most important item on the list. But there are others. There's better risk management. I think teams identified as being strong collaborative skills are more effective as problem solvers. So if things do go wrong, and I keep saying if, we know that a lot of these big projects, something is going to go wrong somewhere
Yep.
along the way. And
Certainly.
so the ability of the team to sort of identify and mitigate those risks together is hugely important, because typically the old way these things went, it would be put on the responsibility of one of the parties, whether it was the buyer or the supplier, and they would have to solve it, and often at their own expense. So here, under a more collaborative approach, they work together to solve it, probably find the best solution that meets the needs and still satisfies both the parties or all the parties. Increased transparency, I think, because you're explaining to the bidders or the proponents, we're doing a CBA. This is what's involved. This is what we're looking for. This is it just gives you an opportunity to be more transparent in your process. Obviously, technical is still worth the majority or price, or combined technical and price, but we are weighing and assessing your ability to demonstrate collaborative behavior, and so there's an opportunity to be more transparent. Long-term success, especially on these projects that can go on for a couple of years, multiple teams coming and going throughout the process, and using different models like P3. The behavioral compatibility sort of ensures like smooth transitions from one team to the other, from one phase to the other, because everyone is more hands-on, if you will, in terms of their level of involvement. So I think that is an advantage. And I think it also, from a bidder's perspective, once they've gone through it and they've demonstrated that they can work in a collaborative manner, and from a buyer's perspective, once they can contract and successfully administer a collaborative relationship, I think that will enhance their reputation going forward for future projects. So bidders will be willing to work with suppliers who can work in a collaborative manner, and suppliers will be willing to work, are more interested in working with bidders who have demonstrated in the past that they can work in a collaborative manner. So there's lots of advantages. I think it's ultimately the CBA is really intended to help sort of de-risk the project. And I keep harping on the notion that things are going to go wrong. So when they do go wrong, what are the risks? Where are the risks? What are they? And how can we mitigate them? And then they work together in a collaborative manner to solve those risks and help ensure that a successful outcome for both parties. And I think that's really what the bottom line is: it's success of the project.
So I totally agree with what you said, but I can't help but to think, do you think all habits die hard?
Mm-hmm.
If a contracting organization is more adversarial in its nature, in its core, when things go wrong, under the assessment scenario, the CBA, there's nothing on the line apart from winning the job.
Mm-hmm.
And it's within, a fairly narrow time, even it's over 2 days. But after you've been on the project, you've made changes to your team, you've been, slugging it for the last, 18 months, 24 months, 36 months, pushing a project forward, and things go wrong. Do you think, people will revert to their old habits and,
I do. I'm a bit of a pessimist, so I'll probably say yes, but I will qualify my answer by saying, if they are of a collaborative nature, they'll try and solve it. They'll do everything they can to try and solve it in a collaborative way, in a way that doesn't put all the onus on the buyer, if you will, to fix it, and vice versa. The owner putting all the onus on the supplier to fix it. But so I do think that they will try and fix it, whatever the problem is, in a collaborative way. But you're right. If it gets ugly, if it turns If they can't be solved, then it turns into a financial issue. The supplier's there to make money, and he is not going to, I don't think, give away money to remain collaborative. He's going to probably revert back, I would say, to his old ways of more of an adversarial relationship, where he's where they want the buyer, you missed something, it's going to cost us money, you have to compensate us for it. And so I do think that the answer is yes. I hate to say it, but I do think it'll, and it really hasn't been tested to the degree here in Canada that that it needs to be to show whether it's going to work or not.
Yeah, I think certainly collaborative behavioral assessments is a good start, a good platform to help you, identify the right partner. I believe so. I think it as far as being tested, I think we need to wait another 5 years or so to see a lot of those major projects.
Yes, for sure.
Come, getting delivered,
Yeah.
and go back and look at how they were delivered, and
Right.
see if if we had a lot of the old habits creeping in.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, the contracting form would help take care of that,
Mm-hmm.
but the behaviors are were just as impactful,
Yeah.
in these projects, and that's what you're trying to curb is the behaviors.
Yeah,
right.
I agree. Yeah.
So,
I was going to say, I think that it'll be interesting to see what the threshold is, like where they have to revert back to their old behavior, and like what does it take? Is it a financial thing, or is it? I would think it's going to be financial for the most part.
well, ultimately, it's about finance.
Excuse me.
Whether it's a delay of some form, whether it's additional time, whether it's whatever it is, it ultimately results in some financial impact, right?
Yeah.
So that's the only way to take care of risk. You you either pay for it or buy it.
That's right.
True. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's I think we'll have an opportunity, hopefully, in a few years to look back and see, what was the impact of that
Of this-
well-meaning
Yeah.
platform. I think
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
it's certainly a good instrument to help you, determine the best partner to deliver a project, which takes multiple integrated teams and over multiple years. You really want to make sure you have the right person working with, and I think that's certainly a good way of at least
And that's what this is
starting.
trying to accomplish, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it for us here, Bill.
Yeah.
If you have anything else you would like to add to it.
No, thank you for the opportunity. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks. Bye.